Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX. I'm Rishabh Gulati. This is the sixth session of the Capital Dialogue, something we've been conducting monthly for the past 6 months, and now we know the reason why. This is a series dedicated to the inauguration of India's new Parliament building, which has just been done, and we have the pleasure and the privilege today of having Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri with us. Minister Puri, thank you so much for taking out time for us and sparing time for this telecast. Let me also introduce Priya Sehgal, our Senior Executive Editor, who's joining us this evening, and she and I will be conducting this session. We are here to discuss not just the past but also the future. 9 years of the present government, another year to go in its present tenure, an election is coming up, but something major has happened in just the past few days, so I have to ask you, Hardeep ji, less than 2.5 years, it's looking fabulous, the building. I'm sure it was one heck of a ride. You have to tell us a bit about it. How's it gone?
Well, first of all, let me start by thanking you for having me here today. I see so many friends in this audience, people whom I've had the privilege of working with. I see Amar Kalkat, then Lieutenant General Kalkat, and in Sri Lanka I see others from my childhood. I don't want to embarrass them because I happily acknowledge my age, but I think some of the lady friends, I think about 50 years younger. So, no, thank you very much. The Bhumi Pujan for the new Parliament building was done by the Honorable Prime Minister on 10th December 2020. I know the Prime Minister does not like any of his team members saying that delay took place because of COVID. I mean, he doesn't like the, finding of excuses. So I'm not going to say making allowances for delays not due to COVID, but many of my best friends in town who generally go by the somewhat loose description of being labeled liberals, I think they're actually illiberal. They went to court, they filed petitions, they sought not just the closure of work, they actually sought to disrupt the whole thing. So I had the privilege of silently bearing not only some of the trolls from my colleagues in other parties, but just before I was addressing a press conference at the media center, government media center, somebody drew my attention to a petition which had been signed by 106 very eminent people, and that list of eminence included former foreign secretaries, cabinet secretaries, and I suspect that they hadn't read what they were signing. I suspect, because I normally regard them as reasonably intelligent people who, before they affix their signature to a piece of paper, they normally should at least have one of their factotums tell them what's in it. So they signed. So the immediate provocation for my reaction was that they said, as a result of the Central Vista project, which is the general name of the whole project, a large number of jamun trees were going to be uprooted. So I said that, look, I don't know whether this is correct, most likely not, but if I am the line minister who's been on the job now since September 3, 2017, if there were any such plans, I would be in the loop. So then some asinine comments came of the kind that one honorable member says that we got the inspiration from a bombed out singing somewhere in Mogadishu. I mean, unbelievable. So I turned around, I allowed the project to proceed, and one day I invited some friends from the media, not necessarily the friendly guys, but some people who were known to be hostile. I took them to what is now known as Kartavya Path, and I said, aren't you going to ask me? So they all burst out laughing, because we were standing under a jamun tree, which was in full bloom. So I said, so I had characterized these people as, the term was a little more severe, but I said category 3 parts. Sadharan, ordinary, asadharan, extraordinary, and I have Ambassador Mukherjee signaling don't. No, I'm only going to describe the adjective first. I won't go further. And I said Chakravarti, which means more than ordinary, extraordinary. I mean, these are intellectuals of that variety. Look, the fact of the matter is that there's an entire ecosystem out there which worked overtime to first close. Parliament is not necessary. We have a young leader who's just stepped onto American soil today. From there, he's saying this was totally unnecessary, it's a distraction. Look, I respect different voices, I respect opinion. Wahan tak theek hai. But then to turn around and say that this is that. Look, I am going to share something on a platform today which I don't think I've done earlier. And my memory normally doesn't fail me. I was brought into the team on 3rd September 2017, within a few days of my joining the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. A huge brown, Manila covers are small, a huge packet arrived, written to be opened by addressee. And I opened it, and there was these huge photographs at different, of all the parliament buildings anywhere in the world. Now, I spent 39 years in the Foreign Service. I've had the privilege of visiting the Japanese Diet. I've been to DC. I've served in London. I've visited the House of Commons. So all of these are in Australia and so on. So obviously, if the Bhumi Pujan was done on 10th December 2020, and those pictures arrived on my table in September 2017, obviously the boss had done his, it was part of his. And actually, if you look at his appreciation of history, we already had all the documentation. The letters written by the Speaker, Meera Kumarji, her Secretary to Secretary Urban Development, Jairam Ramesh's advocacy for the need of a new parliament, our friend Mr. Tharoor's salivating, looking at the Malaysian parliament and said, I wish we had one like this also. So I'm very sorry that they deprived themselves, and I choose my words carefully, of the opportunity to join in that moment of celebration. And for those of us who were there, me, because I had anxious moments before that, because when you're building something at breakneck speed, you could have anything can go wrong. And I can share some anecdote, but I thank you, hats off to the political determination, the visionary thing, because you needed a new parliament. Frankly, you should have got one 50 years earlier. Now, they all say, no, this is this. Look, the fact of the matter is, this building, conceptualized in 1912, operationalized in 1926, was never designed to be the parliament of an independent and growing economically and in other respects growing country. It was the council chamber for a colonial power, and that's what it was intended as. But I don't want to use this to score political points, but I think somebody was lazy, some people were distracted, if I may use their terms back to them, and we ended up with a situation that things kept getting delayed. Not that it was not part of the narrative. When you read the internal files of the government, a lot of people said, "Ki bhai, isko theek karo." There wasn't enough space. I know when my new colleagues joined, you see how cramped the existing space is. And you're trading that in, not because you're getting rid of it. You're going to have now, perhaps in terms of standard setting, in terms of the template, one of the buildings which will be, talked about, because it has latest in technology, it captures Indian history, culture, all the material used, and it's truly something I think we are proud of, and I think those who've chosen to remain outside the celebrations, I'm sure when they start attending the sessions starting soon, they will also join the celebration.
I think when the session starts, there'll be somebody looking for that one nalka which is not working to tweet at you. But I think Priya has a question.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Puri, for this. I think this is after the Parliament. This is the first event that you're doing, and we've called our series, the special series, to mark the foundation of Parliament. So I think it is really appropriate that you're here today. And I'd also like to welcome Mrs. Lakshmi Puri here, and I hope someone who's known to have the last words, I hope I have an ally in you in trying to trump him. But just one more question on this Parliament. Is there any way that you could have got the opposition to come? Because at the end of the day, it is the temple of democracy. And you knew it will bug them. They were looking for something.
Look. Your question, I think, is appropriate. And it ultimately boils down to whether the government of the day, whichever it is, chooses to use the margin of persuasion it has to reach out. I can tell you, when we did the Bhumi Pujan on 10th December, they boycotted then also. And I was instructed by my boss, the Honorable Prime Minister, to visit Dr. Manmohan Singh and say that the Prime Minister personally would be very happy if Dr. Saab could grace the occasion. I went to see him, he was not well. And he told me that he would come. He said if I had been, up to it, I would come. But then, a Bhumi Pujan, which involves logistical arrangements of a different kind, we tried then, we tried now. I think it's only a matter of time before the efforts that were made to reach out to them will find their way into the public domain and people will find out. There are some who argue that, in fact, some of them wanted to avoid any possible embarrassment because if you invite them, some of them couldn't have attended.
What?
They were suspended. They're not in Parliament. So, I'm not saying that's something, but if I listen to arguments on both sides, this is something I've heard. And then, there is this somewhat sense of entitlement. अगर मैं नहीं जा सकता, आप क्यों जाओगे? Entirely possible. But whatever it is, I think, given the solemnity of the occasion, given the fact that you're not building a parliament for this government, this is going to be around for a long time. And if you aspire to be the leader of the house, all the more reason you should show a sense of grace and say, all right, I don't agree with what you've done, but I'm still going to come because that is my contribution or my salute to Indian democracy and to this temple of democracy. I think that would have been the correct way for them. But it's not that we didn't try.
In fact, I didn't know about the back channels or people trying or the visit to Dr. Manmohan Singh. But we'll, the format of this is that we will also like to involve all of you. It's a town hall. So any questions, we are very happy to have them. Just raise your hand and we'll get the mic to you.
She asked me whether I had a set piece. Now, I'm in that category. Wherever I go, set pieces are always sent along with me. But I think it'll much better to take it head on and get into the interaction mode. So I'm with you.
See, I told you I need your help on the last word. So he'll do.
Can we get a microphone here, please?
While we are getting the mic, if I can, the mic has come.
Thank you. First, many congratulations on this building. To me, it's not just a building. It's also representative of a more resilient, confident new India. And my thing is, given your vast experience as a diplomat, today India's position in the comity of nations has never been as supreme as it is today. And I know the frustrations that the government has. You have these party poopers who will go abroad and denigrate the country. I have never seen this level of pettiness qua your own country by people who were in parliament and are now disqualified, not suspended by the way, disqualified. How do you come to terms with this? Because democracy is a kind of a forbidden fruit. If you don't carry them, they say, oh, this is undemocratic. If you invite them and they don't come, then it seems to be autocratic. Given what you've seen across in your career, how do you reconcile yourself to this level of debased politics that we are seeing today?
No, thank you, Sohail. I spent 39 years in the Foreign Service and another 5-6 years in that ecosystem, in the UN, as Secretary General of the Independent Commission with Kevin Rudd. I've had occasions when, during a Congress government, we had then opposition leaders visit us, both when I was ambassador to the UN in Geneva and in New York, and it didn't really matter who the person was. I have always maintained an ambassador's house is open for, residence is open for whoever it is. I remember several instances when the BJP, then in opposition, senior members would come there, and in the General Assembly we would invite them to make statements. I know one clear occasion where I had a very anxious deputy who also happened to be, who looks like me and was my cousin, saying कि अभी अडवाणी जी आ रहे हैं, इस system पे आपने उनका नाम लगा दिया बोलने का, what happens if he makes a statement? So I said, I'm sure Mr. Advani, with his vast experience, will say what I think he will say, and I think it will be with a sense of responsibility. And he was shocked. I mean, when we had the briefing meeting, I was not there, I was running around, and he said, the first thing he said, बताइए इस विषय पे मेरे व्यूज तो यहाँ है, वो तो मैं हिंदुस्तान में कहूँगा, भारत में कहूँगा, यहाँ पे क्या कहना बताइए. Never have I. When Mr. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister, and we had some difficulties with our Western neighbor, and I think a delegation was sent to Geneva. I was not there then. I think Bhaswati was there. And the Prime Minister of the day, Shri P.V.R. Narasimha Rao, decided that the delegation would be led by Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And, it made so much of an impact that when Vajpayee ji in the Human Rights Commission gave an answer to our Western neighbor, the people realized this is India. All right. Now I come to the current, the context where we are today, and I think Sohail is referring, the gentleman has just landed there, is true to a pattern. He arrives there, and let me just take up just the issue of treatment of minorities. I'm not saying this because I see Shazia sitting there or I look at myself. This gentleman must have been 13 years old when the Nelly massacre took place in Assam, and I think something like 2,000 people of a certain minority community were mowed down. Okay. He must have been 14 years old when 3,000 Sikhs were killed in 1984. I can go on giving you the names, Meerut, Bhagalpur, Malyana. Arey wo chhodiye. You are worried about the treatment of minorities. I can understand that you were too young or you've got selective amnesia. For heaven's sake, associate with the narrative inside the country. And I'm not going to make a political point here. Tell me which BJP-ruled states has allowed this kind of a thing to happen. Now, but every day you are going on saying, I was happy, by the way, when my friend Mr. Owaisi gave it back to him today. So this is one. So treatment of minorities I set aside. But Lakshmi and I were discussing this morning, and she tends, because she's not in the direct political world, and my skin has become more hardened. So she said, what do you think this is? He barely lands there and starts effervescing. I said, I think it stems from a very deep inferiority complex. That he goes there and he says, India, minorities under attack. You've got all kinds of people all over the world. And in a city like London or New York or San Francisco, there are a lot of Indians who, they may be holding green cards or American passports, but that core Indianness is very much a part of them. So they will come and listen to people they respect. They will even come and listen to jokers. Now, what happened is today I saw some footage there, and I find, national anthem is being played there, kuch log baithe hue. So I believe when you go and denigrate your own country, he should realize that in the process he demeans himself. That, I think, Sohail, is my way of looking at it. Somebody asked me, why don't you guys give him a final thing? No, I was a little more relaxed yesterday, and I said, in some ways, whenever he goes abroad, he shoots himself in the foot. But he does a few other things. He actually puts, I don't know what the size of the overseas Indian population is. I mean, look, I've served in London, I've served in places with smaller population, I've served in the US. But some estimates put the figure at 25 million Indian people, Indian origin people. Or even if they are origin in terms of what we in Japanese say, Nisai or Sansei, second generation, third generation. But they identify with a growing India. And today, I mean, I'm not referring to Morgan Stanley or the Ernst & Young report. The fact of the matter is, whilst we are celebrating 9 years of Modi and the new parliament, there is respect for India, and this last decade has to that extent been a transformational one. And I'm just going to the last. The boss went on a 3-nation tour, Quad and G7 in Hiroshima. He lands in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. I'm not just talking about the fact that the Prime Minister of that country comes personally to the airport and receives him. How? That picture says it all. But I go a step further. If you read a statement in Parliament, when it says, we applaud you, we identify with you, we want your leadership, because you have come from us, from amongst us. Now, why? Because you're a developing country, you're able to address the G7 and the G20 on your terms, and you speak for the global south. So I think I'm just mentioning. And then he goes to the Sydney Opera House, which is one of my famous places, and the Prime Minister of Australia, introducing him to the crowd, he says, well, I haven't seen such large crowds. Last time I saw one of this thing was Bruce Springsteen. And then he went on to say, Mr. Modi, you are the boss. Okay? And during the previous part of the trip, this is President Biden speaking, not we quoting him. This is President Biden speaking. He says, you're coming to DC next month. I'm having a little bit of difficulty because everybody wants to be at the state dinner which we're having for you. I say, somebody asked me somewhat, I thought, a silly question. Is it Mr. Modi or is it India? I said, Mr. Modi is India. He is the one who's made India, transformed it from the 10th largest economy in 2014 to the 5th largest. And if you are a $3.8 trillion economy now, and the two guys ahead of you are 4.1 trillion and 4.3, I just got the figures for fiscal year 22-23. Your rate of growth was 7.2%. If it is 7.2% and you sustain that, you will be ahead of Germany and Japan.
Yeah, couple of years.
Not couple of years. I mean, earlier, listen, if your difference is 3.8 and 4.1, and that's the German economy, I presume, at 4th position,
yes,
they're technically in a recession.
Yes.
They're in a recession. I don't know, Japan also rate of growth has been flat. So I said, give it another 6 months to a year, year and a half. These are guys who were questioning our being a $5 trillion economy by 2025. Today, they are all saying that by 2027 or 28, you're a $7 trillion economy. So something must have gone right. Some of the macroeconomic management, some of the reforms that have been undertaken, something is working. And that, I think, adds to the position. Okay. And to that respect and appreciation, and you counter that with the kind of, what did I say earlier? Inferiority complex, anchored outburst. And this is the first of his 6 days. So I promise you more entertainment as he proceeds along.
I'm sure there's much more entertainment here also. Lots of people have questions. If anybody has a question, please raise your hands. We'll get a microphone across to you. Please.
There's
let's
Mayuri
get a microphone
Sondi.
across.
Kumkum.
Mr. Puri, my question is a bit subjective because it affects the media directly. Why is there no central hall in the new parliament?
Okay, practical.
You know how long I've known Kumkum. Kumkum, can I tell them? No, I can't tell them.
even tell my age.
No, I can't tell your age. I only tell mine, but I've known Kumkum since he, anyway, I won't go into that. She's a friend. First of all, the facts. A TMC MP asked me that and I've replied to it. There's not one, but there are several central halls. What size do you want? Do you want, there's a courtyard here which fits in 350. You can use one of the other. So there's no shortage of space. I think what you are referring to was a particular phase during the pandemic and otherwise when those who are responsible for access in the parliament decided कि उस समय मीडिया को अंदर नहीं आना था. That was, so the central hall की कोई इसमें कमी नहीं है. ये central hall जो है where you and I have had many cups of Mr. Jaitley used to hold darbar there, you know. Yes. Yeah, he used to hold darbar there. So there are many such spaces. That's not an issue. So the facts are not. So I am entirely on your side. By the way, I am one of those who like the press, and I shouldn't say this, but I think they should be in parliament also.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think
Okay, can we get a
the media is holding
microphone
it.
up front here, please?
Kalyani and Archana.
Then we'll head to the back.
Then there's one there, Mayuri. Then.
I want to ask you a very simple question, that on one side we are celebrating this temple of democracy, and on the other side we have this group of girls, young girls, sitting at Jantar Mantar, who have complained of molestations from a MP of the BJP. And why is there no action? Because as a woman, I'm telling you that I would never ever publicly have the courage to go and sit there, and for so many days. And yet there is no action on that.
Okay. I'm so glad you asked the question. I'm so glad you asked the question because I think it deserves a full answer. First of all, where do I stand on this? I think all of us, we stand. I'm married to a feminist. I've got 2 daughters at home, a feminist. It's not the issue. There is parliament which is being opened, and then there is a protest going on. To equate the two would, I think, be slightly, not a slight exaggeration, but something else. Now, what happened? They were protesting in Jantar Mantar. No problem with that. They were arrested or they were removed when they violated section 144. So that is a violation of the law. Now, could we have done it differently? I'm told by the Minister for Information and Broadcasting, and I talk to him regularly, we've gone out of our way to reach out to them. First they said, file cases. Cases have been filed. Now once you file a case, you can't have it. I'm told that the outreach is continuing. But you know, at every stage that you do that, I think the answer given by my colleague Smriti ji, let the law follow its own course. As far as the government is concerned, I can tell you, I know a lot of very senior people in the government who are trying to solve this problem. But madam, it takes 2 to tango. If you allow discredited politicians like the Chief Minister of Delhi and others to come there and make political capital out of that, the nature of the causes that they stand for. If there has been violation, the person in concern must be booked, he must be arrested, but allow that process to take place.
Okay, couple of more questions. Ma'am, we'll just give everybody a chance if we can. There's one here.
Kalyani, I see Kalyani.
Can we get a microphone to Kalyani ji, then I'll come to the back. Can we get a microphone here? Kalyani ji, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I joined Kumkum in complaining about our lack of access to Central Hall.
I think we can take a straw poll quickly.
That's one thing. But that's not my question. I'm just joining her in her thing. And you also told me the
but
same
I'll tell you, I was asked before this, would you confine yourself to the 2 ministries you're associated with? And I said, look, I don't think somebody who's in a position like me should, but I would prefer to answer questions on things on which I have a responsibility. Because I'm sure next month you can have Anurag here and he can answer the question. Or you can have the speaker to answer the question. Because access control is not, I mean, somebody said something very interesting. What's your role? I said we were only the supervising tekadar to get the thing constructed. But the parliament is run by the speaker, the presiding officers of the 2 houses.
Parliament.
But Kalyani ji, puchiye.
No, you gave the same answer to me earlier also. So my question is something about the future. You see, you have built a big parliament. because that there will be more members from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. That will be after 2025 or 26. So then when that comes, has the government done any exercise about how many members would be included and how is a delimitation going to be implemented?
No,
One thing. There is a big contention between the south and the north, southern states and the northern states. If you go by population, the southern states have limited their population, so they will be paying, something which they don't deserve. Okay. So that's why I'm asking.
I am not in the business of answering hypothetical questions in a hypothetical manner. Now, the fact is you have a limitation up to a certain time. Right. After that, the expansion will take place. I am absolutely sure that when that expansion exercise is undertaken, all these concerns, you are saying this as a journalist, I find my old friend, I don't refer to him as my student anymore, because I don't want to be responsible for what he says. But he's saying, South will be shortchanged. अरे कमाल है, अभी तो एक्सरसाइज शुरू नहीं हुई, क्या क्राइटेरिया है, कौन इसको निर्णय करेगा? And I don't think the southern states, no matter whether they are politically or ideologically or otherwise aligned to you, they're going to allow their voice not to be heard.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a few more questions because we want to get as many people. I think there's one person in the back, then can we get a mic to Aditi ji? Go ahead.
Hi sir, my name is Sukanya. I have two questions for you. Can you hear me? I have two questions for you. First of all, what do you have to say about all that the opposition was saying about the installation of Sengal and also about the absence of the president from the inauguration ceremony of the new parliament building?
Madam, I'm so happy that you asked this question. Let me give you a very simple understanding which I have. We are a 7,000-year-old civilization. Okay? The time we have spent included an interregnum there of 190 years, post 1750. A Cambridge historian, very well known, Angus Maddison, said that India's contribution to the global GDP in 1750 was about 25 to 27% of the global GDP. After 190 years of colonial domination, it came hurtling down from 25% to single digits and was 1 or 2% or thereabouts. Okay. Now, when the Prime Minister said that in Amrit Kal, that is by 2047, when we complete 100 years as an independent country, we should be a Viksit Desh. By Viksit Desh, it means a developed country. I make the submission to you, speaking with a sense of responsibility, we will be a developed country well before 2047. Why do I say it? Our size of our economy, according to Ernst & Young, I'm just quoting one, in 2040, that's 5 years before Amrit Kal, before the 100 years, would be $28 trillion. And if you have that kind of GDP size, your investment in the education, health, all the related sectors. The other day, a very journalist I greatly admire wrote a column questioning this. I'm going to write a column responding to it. What is a developed country? Is China a developing country? China has economies to 12 to $15 trillion. Its per capita income must be close to $15,000 per capita income, and yet it chooses to call itself a developing country. So the size of the economy in and of itself doesn't determine whether you're a developed country or developing. I know that when countries graduate out of the least developed country status, there is a criteria by which you cease to be called a least developed country and you become a developing country. And from developing countries, you graduate to become a developed country. I submit to you all, given the current situation of India in 2023 and all the indices, you are well on your way to becoming a developed country well before 2047. And I'm going to spell it out one of these days.
Okay.
Now, what is, hold on, I'm just getting started. What is the symbol what is a Sengol? What is the thinking behind it? The second thing the Prime Minister said, when we become a Viksit Desh, let us rid ourselves of the colonial mindset. That's what I'm coming to. Now, the Cholas, for those of you who are not students of history, I see many students of history here, they had a political presence, not from what is the geographical area known as India now, but right down to the Indonesian archipelago, okay, and other areas. Now, quite apart from that, what is the significance of the Sengol? That it is ruled by Dhamma, that whoever has been given the responsibility of ruling will ensure that there is equity and justice, and the people, the praja, benefit from that. That is the symbolism. Now, when another nonsensical piece I heard was that this was Brahmanical. I mean, whoever put this out didn't realize that the Adinams are not Brahmins. They're not Brahmins. So where is all this? So what happens here is typical. And somebody, a very learned friend of Sohail's, says, this is the WhatsApp school. Are dekh to lo, the Hindu newspaper. I'm glad. They are supposed to be the custodians of intellectual this thing. They had to fact check themselves. By the way, I was a guy who put out that article of 25th August 1947 of Time magazine. So look, the Sengol, whether you believe in Hinduism per se, or you believe, but the sanctity of that for the praja, for how justice, equitable, fair, that simple you can't. That's very much part of our culture, no matter which part you come from. And you don't have to be a Brahmin. By the way, those guys are not Brahmins. So that's also a separate thing. So I could go on this, but I think I've given you the core of what I would have responded.
Okay, I think Aditi ji has the mic. Can we get a mic here?
I see another old friend.
Hi. It's nice to see you here. I wanted to ask you a question about the other hat that you wear, which is oil. Could you tell us what the outlook for oil diplomacy is going to be with the war raging and oil purchases from Russia? Also, because you are government and because you preside over state-owned oil companies, whether there is any thinking that these companies could buy up, which I imagine would be bargain basement prices, the assets which are being vacated by European and other oil companies in Russia?
Well, I'm happy to answer the question in as comprehensive a manner as I can, but whether assets in that part of the world, the Russian Federation, are available at bargain basement prices is something I think we need to have a separate discussion on. Let me just give you the crux of what oil diplomacy and what are the challenges that we have to face. Overall crude production and consumption per day is 100 million barrels, 100 million barrels. India rate of growth of energy consumption is 3 times the global average. So if the global growth rate is 1%, we are growing at 3%. Therefore, I submit to you, Aditi, that we are consuming 5 million barrels a day, but in the coming time, we will require 6.5, 7 million barrels going ahead. Now, when the events that you are referring to, I mean the military operations between the Russian Federation and Ukraine took place on 24th February of 2022. It's not that the problems in the oil market started on 24th February. I was a newly appointed petroleum minister. I was in ADIPEC, which is an annual event. And as talking to my interlocutors there, I asked them, "Bhai, ye misalignment price ki kya kab tak hogi?" Because prices were going high. prices were going high because the OPEC plus, which includes the Russians, they were trying to control. If you ask OPEC, why are you allowing prices to be high? They will turn around and say, we don't deal with prices. To which a newcomer or a novice like me turns around and says, hey guys, if you determine the amount of crude you're going to release in the market, that determines the price. In other words, if the daily consumption is 100 million barrels and you're only releasing 99 million, shortage of 1 million barrels a day will drive the price from X to astronomical heights. So that was already the situation. Then came February 22, and what happened is the markets took a further turbulence. And what's been happening since then is, but let me first explain the Indian situation. We have both private sector and we have OMCs, oil marketing companies, which you could call as PSUs, but they're not really your normal type of PSU. One of them is the 7th largest company in the world, okay? IOCL. ONGC is also very big. Earlier, we couldn't find managers thanks to the policies of the previous government. But now we are in the situation where we are increasing our exploration and production massively. Our total sedimentary area is about 3.5 million square kilometers. We just released 1 million square kilometers additional for exploration and production. Data is another requirement. What we did was we released not only the data, we are making it available. Earlier, what used to happen, the previous government used to say, come and prospect. So they spend a lot of money, and once they found oil, they say, hamari asset hai, aap kaun hote? Now we're going the other way around. There are 4 or 5 major companies in the world. We are incentivizing them to come and invest in India. And we said, if you don't want to put your own investment, we will provide you the money for the exploration and production. We are even going to that extent. Now, oil came down to $19.56 when the economic lockdown took place and when it was total. $19.56. At that stage, there was no demand for oil because there was no economic activity. And when economic activity resumed, it went from $19.56, it shot up to $128. So our common friend, Mr. Chidambaram, asks us that, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing? So I respect Mr. Chidambaram, so I don't give him a frontal reply, but I've made it known. When you were the finance minister and you faced a situation of rising prices, you chose a novel way. वो पंजाबी च कहावत हैगी कि करे नाना तो पुख्ते पोता. So in order to meet the immediate requirement, you floated oil bonds for 1,41,000 crores, and I'm having to pay. I means the government of the day is having to pay back 3,50,000 crores. It's an absurdity. Now, what I did then, this is all, there's a TMC MP. I don't want to name him. I don't know where the guys get this thing. So-and-so is doing this. There is a shipping company here. All my contracts are CIF, delivered at port. If you are bringing the oil on the back of your kanda, it's there. Neither the external affairs minister will answer, nor the oil minister will answer. Who is this company? Shipping का पूछना, shipping minister पूछो. वो बेचारे जयशंकर ने क्या करना उसमें? और मैंने क्या? I buy my oil delivered at the port. So there's all kinds of absurdity going around there. Because, I'm not saying because they have cover in parliament or something, they are dealing with a bunch of educated morons. And I get up in the morning and I say, ये बोल क्या रहा है यार? क्या बोल रहा है? So, I'm not referring to any one individual. I'm talking about the whole class of professional trolls that I'm having to deal with. They have no respect for basic economics. What are the challenges? And I'm going to conclude with that. I face what I call the challenges of a trilemma. I have to ensure, and I have succeeded, and I say it with great confidence, availability. Throughout this crisis, India was one country. There was not a single day when there was a shortage of either petrol or diesel. Not a single day. When there were rains in the northeast, torrential rains, my oil company guys hats off to them, carried the cylinders on their shoulders, delivered them. Prices went up. What did we do? The oil marketing companies behaved like good corporate citizens that took a knock. The private sector didn't. Now, nobody knows that out of the 77,000 retail bunks that I have in the country, 22,000 belong to the private sector. I can't tell them. I can't even tell the OMCs. But the private sector bunks had large signboards outside. यहाँ पे पेट्रोल आगे से 6 रुपए ज़्यादा महंगा है. So today somebody told me, they are beginning now to sell at 1 rupee less. I said, yeah, because he lost market share. So he has to pay a little to get his market share back. Availability, affordability, I gave you a little. Apart from the OMCs who took a beating, the government took a beating. On 2 occasions, the central government reduced the excise, November 2021 and May 2022. At a time when we were feeding 800 million people 3 meals of dry ration in a day, we were cutting excise. Now comes the fun. All the BJP ruled states reduced the VAT. And the noise is coming from Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who's talking about inflation. By the way, send him a message in wherever he is. Inflation's come down to 5.2. And by the way, the noise is coming from the Congress states, which are selling petrol and diesel 10 rupees more expensive than the other states. I rest my case. And the third one is sustainability. Affordability, availability, affordability, and sustainability. What the Modi government has done on green energy, we tried our best when I was ambassador to Brazil. We wanted to have 5% ethanol blending in 10 of our states and union territories. In 2014, we were able to achieve only 1.4%. Mr. Modi set a target of 10% for November 22. We did it 5 months in advance. And I had to say that by doing 10% blending, we saved 41,000 crores on imports. We paid our farmers, because we were taking their product, 42,000 crores. We had a target of 20% blending for 2030. Aditi, we brought it forward to 2025. I already have E20 blended fuel in 100 petrol bunks in the country as a demonstration fuel. Somebody very senior in the government asked me, why are you stopping at 20%? I said, I'm not stopping at 20%. Conventional wisdom has that if you have a normal car, without changing any of the pipes and all that, 20% blending tak chalega. But the cars which are coming in now are E85. So you can, but I'm going to conclude. Two little incidents. The other day I received a flight, Pune to Delhi. It had 1% sustainable aviation fuel. And I thought my companies were, just being over-enthusiastic. But it trended at number 1, from farm to flight. And I then suddenly thought, we should now go for 1% standard aviation fuel blending for the entire country. You know how much more ethanol we'll need? 14 crore liters. You know what it will do to our agriculture sector? It will boost it. As it is, your sugar mills are up. But we are making ethanol today from agricultural waste. We are making it from parali. We are making it from bamboo, second generation, third. And I think the final thing is green hydrogen. That's going to be the fuel of the future, and India is making tremendous strides in that.
Okay, we've been
I
part of
want
that.
to
Yeah, go ahead,
ask
go
him
ahead.
one question. After all this, to come back to politics, because you know me and politics. And also, I've seen Archana looking down, so I think kabhi to usko, you have to give us something to look up at. There's a CSDS survey that has come out. What survey? CSDS, political survey. Saying that Prime Minister Modi ka ratings are 43%. It was 44 5 years ago. He's 43 now. So he stays where he is. Rahul Gandhi has come up from 13 to, I think, 27. So there's still a huge gap between the two of them. But my question to you is, while Prime Minister is stagnant, Rahul Gandhi is coming up slowly. So is that some cause of concern? Archana, you can look down.
You're an optimist. You think that Mr. Gandhi will bridge the gap with the Prime Minister. Let's get serious. Let's get serious. It's all very well for those who are politically opposed to us to say, bada acha ho raha, wo acha ho raha. My second book was written when the Congress party had won spectacular elections in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, I think. That is when my second book was coming out. So the publishers told me, sir, do you want to revisit your conclusions? I said, no, I'm going to write an extended introduction, in which case I'll not only defend my thing, and in that extended introduction, I said, this is going to help us now to cross 300. Because look, I start my analysis of the Indian voter by showing respect and appreciating the maturity of the voter. Whatever happens in the state government elections, there are local factors. Even in Karnataka, by the way, we could have a long discussion. Our vote share didn't go down from 36%. There were other factors which happened. And I think we will seriously introspect. We will also look at where correctives are required, and we'd be happy to put those correctives into place. But the point I'm making is different. Today, the country is on a trajectory, politically, economically, and I think whatever any other political leader or does or not, or you're talking about opposition unity, I think a good point is we wish them the best. And in the true spirit of democracy, let them come based on ideas on what they are planning to do, not on the basis, as some people are doing, what I call freebie politics or revdi bante ki politics, etc. I think the greatest contribution of the Modi government has been that he has defined good governance in terms of good politics.
Okay, we have less time, so a couple of questions. Arup ji, then we'll come across to Alok ji. Alok ji, quickly.
General Kalkat, you are not in a mood to... No, okay. I don't want to. You know, I have worked with Amar so closely in another life, so okay.
Arup ji, go ahead.
Arupra Chaudhary, sir, I
know. You gave me my first house.
Yeah,
You gave me a type 7 house, which I never occupied.
Yes.
You know, somebody told me, when you gave me that house, somebody said, hey, kya yaar, tumhari kismat mein nahi hai, tum chote flats mein rehta. I was living in my father's DDF flat. Anyway, I paid rent 3 months, you got it done up, thanks to a common friend.
Yeah.
And then I got posted to New York.
That was your luck to get from that quarter. And that was our fortune. At that time, nobody was coming in that colony. Today, it is
the most sought after.
Yeah, nobody was coming.
These are the new Motibag type 7 houses,
Yeah, so just wanted to tell you, I was 10 years with your ministry, started from Mr. Jagmohan's time. And that's why I will come back to the ministry first, then I moved on as 5 years chairman of NTPC. But I'll come back to our ministry thing first. Now, this is whatever people say, we can discuss this for eternity. But this building has come up very well. And like you called us a supervisor. So as a supervisor and this, I would appreciate the tremendous amount of good work done in the short period. Now, is it possible that it will also be opened up for public visit during...
absolutely.
So one can have...
I'll tell you...
Like we do in the Mughal gardens.
100%.
I think wrong comparison.
100%.
Yeah.
See, I'll tell you something. I mean, I shouldn't, but I'm going to. You know, one is the agonizing over timelines being met when you've got a, 20 months or a 25 months or one is that. The other is the carping that you have to face. Carping. There'll be a lot of people going around saying, "Ye building monsoon session tak to chodo. Ye to is Lok Sabha ke life mein nahi ban sakti." And it gets reported back. Now, no matter how thick your skin is if you're in political life, but everybody has human sensitivities. So there are all kinds of things. So I was 100% clear that when the people who are constructing it, when the CPWD tell me, I trust them. That we were working on timelines. Building was ready quite some time ago. You had to take a decision on when you want to do this. It was done. Now we are in the situation where the building was open. People were there for a couple of hours. We need to now complete little things here and there. Okay? And then I have no doubt, because I have requests from the press. They want to go there. They want us to have that. All in the fullness of time. But fullness of time doesn't mean ki lot of time. We are today, Shazia, we're almost on the 1st of June tomorrow. We have the monsoon session of Parliament, I think middle of July. and the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha secretariats will move in, but you have to do allocations, etc. It's all work in progress. Let me tell you, I will personally take you there and show you around.
Thank you.
Okay, quick last word.
Just
We have
one more
taken up.
point here. Just one more point here, sir. You have clean up those other buildings, because being in NBCC, I know how.
No,
that is.
the other buildings are all part of a plan.
Yeah.
No, they're all part of a plan. The central vista is the overall. There's Kartavya Path, then there is the vice president's this thing, then there will be 8 or 9 this thing, all the government. We are paying 1,000 crores rent, even though government is the landowner. So it's an absurd situation. I don't know how it came about.
Okay, quick last question, Alok ji. We have taken up a lot of time.
पुरी साहब, जो नई पार्लियामेंट बनी मुबारक है. ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट तो अभी नया बनने की बात है, वो भी पता नहीं कब बनेगी, जो बिल्डिंग जो है. Yes, their proposal is, if you're not aware, then I think Puri साहब aware about it. So I just wanted to know कि जब नया बिल्डिंग में काम होगा कि नहीं, because in last other sessions, what we have seen, opposition's role, and especially the main question I wanted to ask you, about Rahul Gandhi also mentioned about the agencies are misusing. So because you have a lot of experience, and we have also seen from Rajiv Gandhi days, there are a number of forces working out of country, and that's why do you think that these kind of allegations, FBI also work for the black money and all, if somebody doing some defense deal and arms dealer, and therefore yesterday also there was a case against one person, I'm not naming.
Alok
So
ji,
do you
Alok-
think this is the reason why opposition is crying? Because you are not having behind the curtain some negotiations, okay, we will keep your file down, we will not...
देखिए आलोक जी, ऐसा है, मैं बताता हूँ आपको, और मेरा आपसे परिचय पता नहीं, मुझे याद है वो 40 वर्ष में जब भी कोई VVIP विजिट होता था, invariably you were part of the press delegation. So we have had discussions in Delhi and in different world capitals. देखिए, विपक्ष के जो नेता हैं और राजनीतिक दल हैं, वो पार्लियामेंट्री प्रोसीडिंग्स में पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे या नहीं करेंगे, दैट डिपेंड्स ऑन देम, नंबर 1. नंबर 2, माय ओन सेंस इज कि not participating in proceedings and not allowing the house to function, physical disruption. एक होता है आप पार्टिसिपेट करिए, आप कड़ा विरोध करिए. आप अगर हमारी नीतियां, सरकार जो भी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ द डे होती है, उनकी पॉलिसीज आपको नहीं पसंद, आप उसका ऑपोजिशन करिए, क्वेश्चन करिए. आई थिंक दैट अप्रोच हैज अ डिमिनिशिंग रिटर्न. And that diminishing return, it's not just parliament, it's part of the democratic process. अभी दिल्ली में क्या हुआ? I mean, ordinance की बात मैं ला रहा हूँ. It's not unrelated. Why I think it's related? Because Mr. Kejriwal, whilst he's lobbying around the country to drum up support, the Congress party will not support him there because the Congress party has a taste of that kind of politics within Delhi. रात को 2:08 में CCTV records कि आप जाके वहाँ पे किसी के कमरे में, and a man who was secretary for vigilance, I don't remember his name, Rajashekar I think, yeah, कमरे से सारी फाइलें उठा लेते हैं और बगल वाले कमरे में ले जाते हैं. वहाँ पे जाके आप इसको फोटोकॉपी कर रहे हैं, डिस्ट्रक्शन कर रहे हैं, जो भी. उसके अलावा आपने क्या नहीं किया. जो अधिकारी आपके इशारों पे नहीं चलने को तैयार है और उनके कोई रिश्तेदार पंजाब में, उनकी पिटाई कर दो. देखिए, ये 2 एक्सट्रीम्स हैं इन स्टेटमेंट्स में. हमने कभी भी मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी के बोल रहा हूं, 356 नहीं यूज किया. किसी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को हमने नहीं गिराया. इन्होंने कम से कम ऑन 100 occasions and one prime minister alone used 356 50 times. So they are talking about agencies. They dismiss the entire government. अच्छा, एजेंसी की क्या बात है? एक मान लीजिए स्टेट है, मैं नाम नहीं लूंगा, आप समझ जाएंगे. इट इज सिचुएटेड इन द ईस्ट ऑफ इंडिया. वहां पे टीचर रिक्रूटमेंट हो रही है और टीचर रिक्रूटमेंट में पब्लिक डोमेन में है कि आप में से कितने लोग अप्लाई किए हैं. जो 1 नंबर से 24 नंबर है उनका नहीं हो, 25 नंबर वाले टीचर को आप रिक्रूट कर देते हैं. एजेंसी ने नहीं फाइल किया, वो पहले 24 में से कोई गया न्यायालय, कोर्ट गया और कोर्ट ने डायरेक्ट किया। और फिर पता लगा एक भाई साहब थे, उन्होंने क्या किया, वो खाली जो घर बिल्कुल खाली रहते हैं वहां पे बोरों में पैसा भर के वहां निकला। और ये एजेंसीज की बात करते हैं। अगर आप चाहें तो यू कैन मेक आउट अ केस कि जब करप्शन भी हो एजेंसीज आप नहीं यूज कर सकते। क्यों? क्योंकि हमारे युवा नेता क्या कहते हैं, हाँ, युवराज, अच्छा, जब वैक्सीन की बात हुई, आई डिडंट टच द हेल्थ सेक्टर, अमेजिंग सिचुएशन। एक दिन उठ के ये जो वो प्रोटेस्ट करा, ये करा, प्रधानमंत्री जी हमारे बच्चों की वैक्सीन कहाँ है? तो मेरे जैसे आदमी ने कहा, राजस्थान में आपकी सरकार है, वहां तो कूड़े में फेंकती, और पंजाब में आपकी सरकार है, वहां पे आपने मुनाफाखोरी कर ली। तो आलोक जी, आई एम विलिंग टू हैव एनी सीरियस डिस्कशन on the use of agencies or not use, but I'm never willing to accept a situation क्योंकि आप इतने entitled हैं कि जहां पे proceedings have emanated from elsewhere, तो इसमें क्या है? Whether I'm not naming any one party, I think this is a system anchored in law, and if you have faith in the system, as I think you should come to parliament and talk about these things. मुझे parliament में बोलने नहीं दिया. I looked at the record. Man spoke for 43 minutes. I'm not going into the contents of what he spoke, but he actually spoke for 43 minutes.
But I'll leave it with the last question. Have you designed the well of the house to be smaller so there's less disruption?
I am neither the architect or the design consultant. And you know, this kind of a thing, well, इसको क्या कुआं, ये किसी दुनिया में कहीं नहीं है कि कुआं है उसके अंदर कूद जाओ. Now, if you want to agitate the 101, I had a beautiful cartoon which somebody sent me. You know, all the protests in Parliament are outside the Gandhi statue. So somebody sent me a beautiful this thing. You've got all these people sitting, and जिस भी कार्टूनिस्ट थे उनके सबकी शक्लें भी बनाई इनकी. You could identify the people. So गांधी जी उनको बोल रहे हैं, अरे खाम खा क्यों ये कर रहे हो? वैसे भी तो पार्लियामेंट के दौरान आपने मेरे साथ ही तो बैठना है यहाँ पे.
Okay, we've had a no punches pulled conversation. I think a round of applause is well deserved. Thank you, sir, for being candid and for joining us on this. Now the series makes sense, and the Parliament building that we've had behind us for all these months, now we know why we were here. Hardeep Singh Puri, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this telecast of NewsX.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.